Let that rattling quarter in your pocket transform into a time machine for a moment. You're in spring 1968, streetlights casting a glow on headline-grabbing protests, rock and roll bleeding into every jukebox, and the U.S. Mint churning out coins at breakneck speed to satisfy a nation addicted to loose change. Into this whirlwind of cultural shifts and economic pressure, something silky smooth yet game-changing slipped through, a tiny flaw in the die that would become the most coveted anomaly of the Washington Quarter Series. When you hold that 1968 double-die obverse quarter today, you're cradling the collision of mid-century American life, production urgency, and pure minting magic. Back in the day, the silver coin era had just drawn to a close. In 1965, Treasury Secretary Doug Dillon oversaw the transition from 90% silver to a clad composition, and by 1968 clad planchets, layers of pure copper sandwiched between cupronickel, were the norm. Demand soared as the public hoarded every leftover silver piece and turned to quarters, dimes, and half dollars for daily transactions. The Philadelphia Mint, unaccustomed to producing clad metal on such a massive scale, ramped up its die hub creation process. Hubbing involves impressing the negative image of the design onto steel hub blanks multiple times to achieve the depth and clarity needed for striking coins. Picture technicians swapping hub impressions and polishing dies at night under bright Windows-type fluorescent lights, turning and inspecting each master die before it went into service. It was during one such hubbing session in late March of '68 that a misalignment occurred. Nobody at the Mint noticed until test strikes came back. Two impressions overlapped by a hair's breadth, twice imprinting Liberty, the date, and even the motto. The duplication was razor-sharp, a phenomenon more akin to ghost imaging than the soft doubling you'd see from a worn die. Think of Liberty's profile as a photographic negative slightly shifted, unleashing that captivating echo you now seek with your magnifier. As soon as the anomaly was spotted, Mint officials halted production on that die, destroying what they could. Yet, in that brief window, hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of coins were struck before managers ordered a recall. Most were melted down, but a few slipped into circulation, perhaps paid as change in diner booths, ferry meters, or tucked into Easter baskets. And so began the legend. Fast forward to the era of third-party grading. When collectors first began submitting 1968 quarters en masse to PCGS and NGC, they noticed that a small percentage bore the unmistakable doubling. Grading services tagged these as DDO-001, the first recognized double-die obverse variety of 1968. It became clear that not every 1968 quarter carried this treasure, and that rarity fueled the fever. By the mid-1980s, dealers were swapping stories of hunting through bagged rolls, flashlight in one hand, loop in the other, hoping to unearth that one shimmering specimen. This was before internet forums, before eBay, hunting Mint driving from coin shop to coin shop, exchanging leads, sometimes trading a handful of common quarters just for a shot at examining stacks of 1968s under a high-powered lens. Today, a proper sight test for the double die is straightforward. Angle the coin under a bright light so that the devices catch the raised edges. Liberty's hair strands at the crown, those tiny ridges on the band, become a visual palindrome. Each curl repeats, slightly offset from the first. Peer closely at the 9 in the date. The sharpness of the duplication will jump out. The T in trust delivers another telltale pulse of echoing metal. If you see soft blurs instead of crisp lines, it's likely die wear or post-mint damage. The genuine article has a clarity that almost makes you wonder if the Mint intended to produce a miniature stereograph. Market performance over the past 2 decades has been nothing short of meteoric. In the late 1990s, top-grade DDO-01 quarters in MS-65 condition might scrape by at $1,500 to $2,000. By 2010, that same MS-65 bracket commanded $5,000 to $7,000. Come 2020, we saw a straight-grade MS-65 cross the $15,000 threshold. The collector community watched in awe as one MS-66 example sold for $18,600 in 2018, only to be dwarfed by a 2023 auction where an MS-66 Plus brought $27,000. And just last spring, A near-perfect MS-67 with eye-clean surfaces and blazing luster broke records at $32,500. Each of these sales not only resets the bar, but transforms the story, proving that even a single grade point can unlock five-figure swings in value. Price guides have since adjusted to reflect that intensity. A well-worn VF30 coin hovers around the $8,000 mark. But if you find one in EF40, where Liberty's hairlines are still distinctly visible and the rims retain solidity, you might be looking at $10,000 to $12,000. An AU50 piece with just faint contact marks can slide into the mid-teens. And anywhere from MS60 through MS64, the market shows a near-exponential growth curve. MS60 coins routinely fetch $12,000, MS62 coins breach $14,000, and MS64 coins linger near $20,000. That staggering rise between MS62 and MS64 reflects a scarcity that even non-specialists find astonishing. But beyond the dollars, the human stories around this quarter rival the auction block drama. One collector famously recounted finding a DD001 at their local bank teller's change drawer in 1992. The teller, unimpressed by the doubling, set it aside in a small office jar labeled odds and ends. The collector visited weekly, tipping the jar until the quarter emerged. Only then did the teller Google 1968 double die and realize its true worth. Another dealer tells of a woman who walked into his booth at a state fair in Ohio, holding a 1968 quarter pressed between wax paper. She simply asked, "Is this worth anything?" When the dealer confirmed it, and later saw her jaw drop at the $11,000 offer on the table, she reportedly laughed, tears in her eyes. She had found it in her father's desk drawer, along with old letters and a 1956 Elvis Presley fan club pin. Condition nuances add yet another chapter. A circulated DO01 with modest wear still presents that dramatic doubling, albeit with softened luster and minor scratches. It's like seeing a Hollywood star in vintage sepia, still instantly recognizable, but with character marks telling a life well used. Collectors prize these survivor pieces for the narrative they carry. Each scratch could be the mark of a car ride in an ashtray, a coffee shop purchase, or the rumble of pocket coins during a family road trip. In uncirculated grades, you're holding a coin as fresh as the day it was struck, the doubling crisp enough to cast micro shadows beneath the raised rims. A feature that makes raw MS65 and MS66 pieces practically glow under LED attachments in modern grading lab setups. If you ever get your hands on one, handle it like the treasure it is. Wear soft cotton gloves, avoid direct skin contact, and store it in an inert plastic flip or archival quality holder. Even the natural oils from your fingertips can dull the bright cartwheel luster that collectors chase. And while cleaning might tempt you, after all, who wants tarnish on a $20,000 coin? Resist. Improper polishing can irreversibly damage surface patina and have its value. Leave it to the pros. Qualified conservators armed with laboratory-grade solutions can safely remove contaminants without compromising the die-struck artistry. In the end, the 1968 double-die obverse quarter isn't just a mint error. It's a symbol of serendipity in mass production, an invitation to treasure hunt in everyday pocket change, and a testament to how tiny shifts at the source can magnify into stunning collector premiums. When you hold that coin up to the light, even if it's just an MS63, you're seeing a story that spans decades of U.S. history, from Cold War anxieties to pop culture revolutions. Soon, we'll turn the page and explore our second featured quarter, the 1996 variety that turned heads and tilted markets decades later. But before that, let yourself linger on the double die's ghostly echo. Shifting gears from our mid-century marvel to a coin minted nearly 3 decades later, let's zero in on the 1996 Washington quarter, the plain-clad workhorse that most of us spent without a second thought. Yet in specific error forms, it can be every bit as electrifying as that 1968 double die. In January of '96, the mint was humming along under the 1965 copper-nickel-clad rules, striking billions of these quarters in Philadelphia and Denver for everyday commerce. Few collectors paid much attention until a handful of oddballs surfaced in the early 2000s, featuring striking mistakes that range from the subtly doubled to the spectacularly off-center. Our spotlight will fall on the premier variety, the 1996 Philadelphia Double Die Obverse, and then roam through off-center strikes, broad strikes, and planchet mishaps that have all carved a niche in error coin lore. Back in 1996, the Mint's Philadelphia facility relied on fully automated hubbing presses fed by teams of technicians who swapped dies, inspected test strikes, and pressed planchets at rates exceeding 750 coins per minute. Most of the time, this choreography produced near-perfect strikes with crisp detail on Washington's profile, the date, and inscriptions. Yet in late August, a miscommunication during the hubbing sequence led to a slight rotational misalignment of the obverse die. By the time inspectors noticed the ghost image effect on Liberty's silhouette, thousands of coins had already been produced. The result, the 1996 P Double Die Obverse, now cataloged as D1996-1 by specialists, identifiable by a faint second outline around Washington's head, particularly the ear and the motto, "In God We Trust." Visually, the doubling on an authentic specimen is subtle, more like a wisp of a shadow than the hammer blow doubling on that 1968 quarter, so you'll want a loop held at a low angle under daylight or a daylight-balanced lamp. Look for the ear, where the cartilage seems to flicker twice, or the dates 9, which will show a ghostly twin imprint. Even the word Liberty along the rim can carry a soft echo. Unlike post-mint damage or wear-related doubling, this variety displays consistent parallel lines, matching in thickness and following the contours of the primary design. That precision tells you it came straight from a mis-hubbing rather than from a struck-once die scuff. When genuine examples first appeared on the market circa 2002, dealers and early adopters snapped them up for prices in the low hundreds of dollars. In circulated grades, a VF20 or EF40 coin, one with light, wear, but still visible doubling, sold for roughly $250 to $400. As third-party grading labs began certifying and publicizing these errors, prices climbed steadily. By 2010, EF-graded specimens were routinely listed at $700 to $900. Today, a mid-grade MS63 example graded by PCGS or NGC can fetch anywhere from $2,000 to $3,500, while an MS65, with razor-sharp luster and minimal contact marks, might cross the block at $5,000 to $7,000 depending on eye appeal. The auction record for a pristine MS66 Plus sits near $9,800, demonstrating that even the faintest doubling can become a six-figure conversation piece in the right setting. Beyond the double die, the 1996 quarter has inspired fascination among error enthusiasts for several other mishaps. Off-center strikes, for instance, occur when the planchet fails to seat properly within the collar, causing part of the design to miss the metal entirely. Collectors classify these by the degree of off-centering, 10%, 20%, even up to dramatic 75% strikes, where Washington's portrait sits on the very edge. A modest 10 to 15% off-center specimen in lower grades might trade for $50 to $100, but push that to 30% or more, and you're looking at $300 to $600. At the extreme end, say, a 50% off-center in uncirculated condition, prices can soar toward $1,200 or more, especially if the strike is clean and the misalignment is uniform around the rim. Broad strikes represent another class of error. Here, the collar that normally shapes the coin's edge is absent or malfunctioning, allowing the metal to spread beyond its usual diameter. These coins commonly exhibit rounded, melted rims and can measure up to 29 millimeters instead of the standard 24.3 millimeters. While common in test strikes, a broad-struck 1996 P Washington quarter that accidentally enters circulation is a true outlier. In heavily worn grades, you might find these for $150 to $250, but an uncirculated broad strike, complete with frosty fields and well-defined hairlines, can command $800 to $1,500 at auction. Planchet errors add yet more intrigue. A handful of 1996 quarters have emerged struck on wrong planchets, most notably on leftover dime planchets, giving the coin an unusual copper-nickel surface with Roosevelt's tiny "In God We Trust" overprint. These misstrikes are exceedingly rare. Only a couple dozen are known to exist. Even in heavily circulated condition, These wrong planchet quarters can fetch $2,500 to $4,000. A pristine example, still bearing the shift marks from the dime collar and displaying clear Washington features, has traded in private sales for north of $10,000. Stories of discovery weave rich texture around these varieties. One off-center collector relates that he pulled a 35% off-center 1996p out of a bag of change from his morning coffee run. He only noticed because Washington's profile was pressed into his leather wallet. Another Broadstrike legend involves a casino cashier who pocketed an oddly large coin for an entire shift before realizing it didn't match the slot machine payouts. By the time he looked closely, word had spread in local collector circles, and the piece was already under serious offers. The wrong planchet Diamond Strike even inspired a myth about a West Coast coin-op technician who discovered the odd quarter inside a laundromat machine, tucked behind a row of soda can returns. Whether every tale is ironclad or embellished, they underscore how mistakes at the die and press level can surface in the humdrum rhythms of daily life. Of course, condition remains king. In clearly worn, circulated grades, let's say $50 or lower, the various errors still present their unique quirks, but the surfaces show bag marks, contact abrasions, and dulled luster. A 1996p double die and $58 might bring $1,200, while a comparable Broadstrike could fetch $400. Move into the mint state realm, MS60 through MS63, and you enter a rapidly escalating marketplace. An MS61 off-center specimen might fetch $500, but an MS63 error in any variety often commands double that. In MS64 and above, where the devices gleam sharply and fields remain unblemished, even a modest off-center or mild Broadstrike can eclipse $2,000. The tightest premiums sit on the double dies and wrong planchet pieces, where each grade jump can translate into thousands of dollars. Beyond raw numbers, these 1996 quarter errors highlight a collector's thrill, the chance that a run-of-the-mill pocket coin could turn out to be a once-in-a-lifetime find. They remind us that, even decades into massive mintages, the machinery can hiccup in ways that defy predictability. And whether your passion lies in the subtle allure of a double die or the dramatic flair of a Broadstrike, these quarters exemplify how the smallest deviations at the source can yield outsized rewards. As we draw the curtain on our featured coins, the punkish double die of 1968 and the eclectic error gallery of 1996, remember that true collectors keep their eyes peeled on every piece of change. Each quarter, no matter how common it looks, carries a backstory written in metal, pressure, and human oversight. In one hand, you might hold a coin that once paid for a carousel ride. In the other, a potential auction headliner capable of whisking you into five-figure realms. Whether you're tracking down an elusive double die, hunting off-center anomalies, or marveling at planchet blunders, the hunt is part of the fun. So keep that loupe handy, examine each quarter with curiosity, and cherish the knowledge that, in numismatics, the everyday and the extraordinary often coexist. Who knows? Which quarter you pull from your cup of coins next might just be the next story worth telling.